Hi, my name is Nina Ellis, Dr. Nina Ellis, and I am an assistant professor of English, comparative literature, and creative writing at a university here in Egypt. Last week, I promised that I would talk to you a little bit about how to get PhD funding in the UK, so here you go. I was applying for PhD funding in the 2018 to 2019 academic year, so some of these things might have changed. And if you have any tips or suggestions for new ways of finding funding, please comment below and share them with everyone else. So when I was applying for PhD funding, there were four main ways of funding your PhD in English literature in the UK. Number one, self-funding. That means paying for your PhD yourself. I was unable to do this personally. I couldn't have afforded it. Two of my closest friends did this and went on to get full-time, very prestigious academic jobs. So there's no reason not to if you can afford it. Clearly, it can still lead to a successful academic career. It just wasn't an option for me. And obviously, to self-fund as a PhD student, you still need to get into the university to begin with, and then you go ahead and pay your own tuition fees. The second option for PhD funding is having the government pay for your PhD through one of the governmental funding bodies. And this is what I did. I had a full PhD studentship from the Arts and Humanities Research Council in the UK. These are open to British citizens, and at the time that I was doing my PhD, starting in 2019, they were also open to EU citizens. You'll have to check to see if that's still an option. And the way that you get this studentship is you apply to the university through that usual route, you get your PhD place, and then the university selects their kind of top however many applications amongst the PhD students that they've admitted, and they put those PhD students' applications forward to the Arts and Humanities Research Council if you're doing a PhD in the Arts and Humanities, or the Research Council relevant to your discipline. I know there's one for the social sciences, I'm sure there's one for the sciences as well. I think they have research councils that distribute funds across the board. If literature is getting funded, then I'm sure other things are getting funded too. So you do your initial application to the university, you get in, and then you work with your PhD supervisor to put together another application for funding, which the university then puts forward to the Arts and Humanities Research Council or whatever government research council is relevant. And you have to write some new things for that, perhaps, which your PhD supervisor or your prospective PhD supervisor will probably help you with. And that's what happened to me. And I was successful and got the AHRC, Arts and Humanities Research Council, full studentship. And that came to just over £17,000 per year to be living and studying in Cambridge as my stipend, and also they covered all my tuition costs. Obviously, 17 grand is not a lot, but you're not taxed on it, which makes a difference. So you can live not in a grand manner, but you can get by. And throughout my PhD, I did a ton of private tutoring to make extra money on top of my PhD stipend. And actually it was enough that I was able to travel and have a nice time and go out to dinner. So it is possible, but the private tutoring did tire me out quite a lot. So it's always a balance. The third option for PhD funding is funding from the university itself. So just to recap, you have self-funding first, government funding second, and then university funding third. Part of the reason why I applied to Cambridge for my PhD is that I knew that they have quite a lot of money. So they have special dedicated scholarships for people from all different kinds of groups. Like, I remember noticing that there was a PhD scholarship available for people who were descended, I think, from greengrocers. And there were studentships available for people from different nationalities or different ethnic backgrounds. And clearly, a lot of these studentships were made possible by funds from perhaps former students at the University of Cambridge who wanted to broaden the PhD student body, which is great. And then there was a broader pot of funding from Cambridge itself as well that could be distributed in a less targeted way amongst PhD students. So the university puts you forward initially for the government funding option. If your application is not successful at that point, they might then see if they have enough funds to allocate that funding to you directly from Cambridge. So this is specifically how it works at Cambridge. I think they rank their PhD applicants. They put the top group forward for the Government Research Council studentships, like the one that I got. And then the ones that are not successful in that round might be funded by Cambridge itself. And in the meantime, you have all of these targeted studentships, like the greengrocer one, for which they're looking for specific students to allocate those funds to. I applied to St Edmunds College at Cambridge, which is a mature college. It's one of the newer colleges, because I knew that in the year that I was applying, they had a specific scholarship coming up for English PhDs, and I thought, I need to maximize my chances. I didn't know I would get the Arts and Humanities Research Council funding, so my logic was that if I didn't get that, perhaps the funds from St Edmunds College that were for English PhD students, and I think this came up maybe every 2 or 3 years, could be used to fund my project. So do your research and look at all the specific colleges at Cambridge. I think there are at least 20, and see what particular funds they might have that might suit you. So you have self-funding, government funding, university funding, and we're going to come to number 4 in a second. But before I talk about the 4th option for funding, I want to say that I knew several people who had half funding from the government, from the Arts and Humanities Research Council, and then half funding from Cambridge Trust, which is one of those generalised Cambridge PhD funding bodies. So it is possible to mix and match, and the university and your prospective supervisor, who would become your supervisor if you went ahead with the PhD, help guide you through that whole process. I got the impression that Cambridge really did want all of us to succeed in winning funding, and they did what they could to kind of knit together funding packages, which I think would come to this £17,000 a year number. It might be higher now because the cost of living in Cambridge is going up, but when I started in 2019, that's what they gave us. I actually think it was £17,001 a year. The 4th way of funding your PhD was through something called a collaborative doctoral partnership. And that's where it's not you funding yourself, it's not the government funding you through a funding body, it's not the university funding you through a targeted or generalized scholarship. It's a particular institution that commissions you to write a PhD about a topic that they select. So I knew someone when I was doing my PhD who was doing a collaborative doctoral award, that's what they're called, with the National Trust, writing the history of a group of paintings at a particular country house. It was a really interesting PhD and looking a lot at the heritage of empire. So Google collaborative doctoral awards and see if there's a particular PhD topic that is relevant to your area of expertise and of interest, and definitely consider that. The difference is that you don't need to come up with your own PhD topic that you sell to the university and that you then sell to the various funding bodies, as I did in my research into Lucia Berlin. So you have less freedom in what you study, but on the other hand, maybe it's helpful to have someone tell you what they would like a PhD written about, and it certainly is a good opportunity for funding. I hope that's helpful. I haven't Googled all of these different types of PhD funding awards since I did my PhD myself, so it might have changed since 2019. I mean, it has been 6 years, but throughout my PhD years, and I graduated last year, I do think that was consistently the case, so I'm hoping this is relatively up to date. And please feel free to, as I said, comment and let us know if you're aware of any other possible approaches to PhD funding. Getting a PhD scholarship was so important to me, and I understand how important it is to other people. I couldn't have done a PhD without it, and I'm so grateful to the Arts and Humanities Research Council for funding me. Next week, I can talk about whatever you like, so please comment or send me questions via Instagram, TikTok, subscribe to my Substack at lookingforlucia@substack.com, I think, or you can just check out my website, which has a contact form that you can use to get in touch. And have a great week. Bye!